You are listening to the Step Up to Life podcast, where we discuss God and the biblical gospel in America and around the globe. If you're interested in finding out more about the global ministry of Step Up to Life, you can find us online at stepuptolife.com. Hey, welcome back to the Step Up to Life podcast. We have an awesome guest here today, Pastor Ed King, who goes way back with this guy who I'm sure you already know or are familiar with. And so, Link, who do we have here today, and what's this all about?
Yeah, well, we are super excited, and we know that you are going to enjoy this a ton, because one of my favorite people in the world is here, even though we don't have a ton of time together. But if we sit down, we can, it's one of those friends where if you sit down, 2 hours could go by. Because you got to cover family and work and the NBA and the playoffs and all of this stuff, which we've been doing. So this is Pastor Ed King, and we have known each other. We were trying to remember.
A long time.
Oh, man, maybe 40 years? Because you're going to turn.
My son was born,
That's scary to think about. Okay. So going all the way back to the well, first of all, before how we met, because that's not that important. Let's go all the way back with you. You were born and raised in North Omaha. Mm-hmm. Okay, tell us about that a little bit. What was your upbringing like?
I was born in July 18th, 1965, believe it or not. Most of my life lived in North Omaha. I think about it, how times were when we were growing up versus my childhood versus the same area now. We can get into that a little bit later. I can see the difference. And big difference now than it was when we were growing up.
For better?
For worse.
For worse.
For worse. I think about that a lot. You know, the areas that we used to walk and run and play in, the parks we used to go to. Yeah. Fast forward, I look at those same areas and where I said, where are all the kids at? All the kids are gone. And so,
Right. Wow. So you went to North High?
North High, graduate of North High in the class of 83.
Okay, now wait a minute. Don't go too fast here, because this guy was kind of a sports star. A sports star. Yeah, track. You were
80 pounds ago.
But like in track, what did you run?
I was 100 and 200 and 400 relay.
And 400 relay.
Yeah. Every time I see John Nicely, he was the sports newscaster for Channel 7 back then.
Right.
And so every time I see him, he still say, hey, I want to race you. I think I can beat you now. So John, there's 80 pounds that are on me now that wasn't there then. So.
But you did really well, right? You didn't go to state?
Went to state all years, 3 years that we were there. Track scholarship to UNO.
No kidding.
Yeah, I went to UNO for a year. And then after that, my life was messed up and I needed the Lord, and so things changed. So,
did you play football or anything else? Or
I didn't play. I have more of a love for football than anything, but track was my ticket, and so I never got a chance to really play football. I take that back. I went out for football when I was the first year I was in high school. Broke my leg, and so after that football, my coach, he instructed me. He said, "Hey, track is going to be your ticket." Yeah, and so I dropped football and competed in track.
That's a smart decision for a young man to make. Wow, great. Your family? What was your family like growing up?
Mom, oldest of six. Okay. My mother was wonderful, still today wonderful. My dad wasn't there. But we here lately, we've been able to reconnect, and God is really, bringing that back together again. So like I said, been married to my high school sweetheart. We Juanita King is her name,
yes.
And 3 kids and a host of grandkids who I love. I can't get enough of them. So,
How many years you been married?
Oh boy, we got married in 86, 1986. So what is that? 30?
Coming up on
almost 40. We've been together over 40 years.
Okay,
but we got married in 86, October 18th of 86.
And she is just the sweetest lady ever.
Love her more today than I did when we first got married. She knows all the good and bad, and she still sticks around. So I'll take it.
Awesome. Till death do you part.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you go to UNO to run track. You do that for a year, and then what? Now, what would the next few years look like?
It was that's a great question. Just dark. When I say dark, just trying to find out who I was as a person. Didn't really understand, my life, and just a lot of anger, really, really angry toward my dad for not being there, and so carrying that, So let me back up a little bit. I had a friend of mine who was also on the track team. He said, hey, there's a Bible club that I go to, and I want you to come. And at that time, I was just mad at the world, mad at my dad, the whole nine. I said, I'm not interested in no Bible study class. We would go to church every now and then, but going to Bible study, I just, in my mind, it's like, who does that?
At least nobody cool.
No. And I remember this guy would come and watch him run, because we were on the same team at North High at the time, and it was this white guy that he would come and watch my friend Eric every week. And I was like, who's that guy? And he said, well, that's my Bible study teacher. I'm thinking, okay, that's weird, okay? Because this same guy, he and his wife was driving a big yellow school bus picking up all the African-American kids in the neighborhood. And my grandmother said, who are those people picking up kids? And she was really skeptical of of these people, right?
Sure.
And so he said, what's his name? Bert Holland. I mean, he's a cool guy. And he said, hey, he's the Bible study teacher of the class that I go to. Fast forward, he said, okay, he kept asking me to come. I said, man, look. But on the inside of me at the time, I was so empty that I was frustrated with life. I'm a teenage dad at the time, not married, teenage father and not married. Life was just miserable for me at the time. So the short version of it, I said, okay, I'll go. And so I went. I'll never forget, it was down toward the downtown area, these old school apartment building. They had real steep stairs. I remember going up these stairs, and I walked in.
Now, how old were you at this point?
Okay, at this time, I had to have been about 18.
Okay.
About 18 at the time then. Okay. And I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, they had this poster on the wall, and it says, everybody is on one of these steps, where are you? And I'm sitting up here looking around, kind of. So I was reading the poster, but looking around like, okay, who are these weird people sitting in this group, right? And I read unconcerned, concern, conviction, repentance, saving faith. And it was almost like the words of the poster leaped on my heart. And it was like, what is going on with me? Because it's almost like I got emotional. It was like, and I never get emotional, but I got emotional. It was like the Lord was saying, hey, you're on concern stage. He says, and we went to church off and on, my mother always made us go. But when I got old enough to decide for myself, hey, I would go maybe Easter, Christmas, that kind of thing. But when I saw that poster and it was like God was speaking to my heart. It says, hey, you're concerned about your spiritual life. And it was like, I couldn't explain what was happening on the inside of me, because it was like, Lord, what is happening? So the short version of it was Bert Holland at the time, he started teaching about what it meant, to be on the concerned step. And it was like, for the first time in my life, it's like I felt like God was really speaking to me. And I was so excited because I couldn't really explain what was happening, but I know something was happening. I went home and I told my girlfriend, I said, hey, you got to come, to this Bible study group. And so at that time, now keep in mind, she's pregnant with our second child at 18. I'm 18 years old and we have 2 kids.
Okay.
And so she said, okay, I'll come. She came, didn't tell her nothing about the poster. I just told her how I felt being in the group. She came in, and the exact same thing happened to her. She said, hey, I was looking at this poster and that concern stage, and we were like, we couldn't believe what God was doing in our hearts, and it was amazing. And I'll never forget, later on, the Hollands told us at the time, their president, who's a great friend, I love him, Dean Fraser was his name, I love him. He said they were kind of concerned about Juanita and I coming to the group because we were teenage parents, and they didn't want to send a message to the rest of the group that hey, we're condoning that, and that kind of thing. And Dean later told me, which I love it, Dean. He later told me, he said, when I first saw you, Ed, he said, I didn't think your life would turn out to be anything. He told it to me straight. And he said, because there was Eric, my friend Eric, and myself. Eric looked like a promising life. My life looked like, a teenage father with 2 kids and not married. Wasn't really going anywhere at the time, but he said, he later told me, he said, I was so wrong about you. And I said, praise God. I said, at that time, Dean, I probably wasn't going anywhere, but it wasn't until I was introduced to God. God spoke to me through a poster that my life was changed forever. And of course, it was a Step Up to Life poster, and And the interesting part, it happened the same time to Juanita. And we both, it's like our journey to the Lord, our deep journey into the Lord really kind of started together. And it was like, on top of that, I had another older gentleman was going to the church that we belonged to as kids. He would call me and say, "Hey, you need to get your life together." He was just, he was that father. He replaced my dad's role in just, hey, hitting me straight. Hey, that emptiness that you feel, it was coinciding with what I was reading at the church. And so Bert said, okay, look, hey, you guys, I want to take you guys out to the church that I go to. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're going to be basketball. They're going to play basketball. And I'm like, how's a basketball inside of a church? So I got to get, there was a hunger to know more about God after I saw that poster. And so we went out to Trinity Church at the time, and we started playing basketball. The guys went for basketball. I went to understand more of who God was. And I met Pastor Murdoch. It was like this guy at the time, he was larger than life to me, but he was so nice to us. And it's like at that time, we didn't interact with pastors and and that kind of thing. And so they said, this is the guy that wrote the book. And we felt like he was a star because it's like, he's, talking to us, explaining to us, hey, what it was all about. And I met you, of course, and this guy named Ty Shinzo. Didn't know what happened to him after that, but no, I'm teasing.
You'll hear more about
it. And so, that's where it all started. And my life, it's like God used that, and my life has never been the same. Never been the same. And so Step Up to Life for me, I mean, it literally transformed my life. And every opportunity from the time I accepted Christ around 18, 19, and I'm almost 60 now, I've never stopped teaching it. Yeah, I've never stopped teaching it because, and I've heard stories of other people say, hey, the same thing happened to me. I looked at a poster and all of a sudden I couldn't stop thinking about what step I was on and how do I get to the next one and those type of things. And now, I mean, fast forward now, it's being taught in high schools. Like I do a lot of the unfortunate part, gang intervention and prevention. And one of the things we talk about is what step are you on? Why are you on? Why do you not care? Why are you on unconcerned? And it creates conversation. And God He's never failed in terms of showing people where they are, walking them from this step. I feel like I'm talking a lot, from this step to this step, and it's practical. You can see it. It's easy to understand. And it shows you exactly where your heart is.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're not familiar with Step Up to Life and the 5 steps that we help people see where they're at, that's what Ed is referring to. So can you take a minute and just explain that so that that's clearer? Because it might not be familiar with the person who's listening.
Yes.
Exactly what are these steps?
Yeah, the Step Up to Life, I call it a ministry tool to show you where your heart is with God. And the first step is unconcerned, meaning you don't care the way I understood it or explain it, to where you don't care anything about God. You may know a little bit about him, but for the most part, you really don't care. And then then step 2 was concern. You're concerned about, hey, if you died today, where would you spend eternity? Where would you go, right? And most of the time when someone close to you die, people, their spiritual conscience is more, they're more aware of, okay, where would I go if I passed away? So they're concerned about their lives, or they could be having issues or problems that get them concerned about God, or things could be going good, but you're still like, okay, I don't know. I'm not connected to the Lord. I'm not connected to God.
So the word we use on that is awakened.
Awakening.
And it's interesting because when you looked at that poster, that's what I was thinking when you were sharing that. Yeah. It's like when you looked at that poster, God awakened
That's exactly right.
to your spiritual need and showed you where you were.
That's exactly right.
So awakening is that key word.
That's it. I love it. That's it.
Conviction?
I asked the people, I said, have you ever done something in your life that you felt bad about? And most of the time, the hands would go up. And then it's like, okay, when you do something and you feel bad about it, that's God speaking to your heart about, okay, why do you feel bad for some people? Why do you feel bad? Some people feel bad because they got caught and things didn't work out right.
That's right.
That was me early on in a lot of ways. But others feel bad because they recognize and they understand, hey, I'm sinning against God, and that spiritual conviction is there. So, and it's like, okay, what do you want to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Some people say, well, I'm not going to do anything. I just feel bad because I got caught and this is the moment and I'm going to go back to my life. Others, it's like, you know what? Hey, I can't, I don't want to live here in this. God, I want you to do something about this emptiness, this pain, that I'm feeling in my heart, you know, and of course, and we tell the kids that. We ask them, we said, okay, and I love this. It's probably the funnest part about Step Up to Life for me. We ask the kids, I say, okay, I got a guaranteed way you can go to heaven. And they said, how many of you guys are interested in going to heaven? Fast track, guaranteed way to get there. All the hands go up, right? I said, okay, we're going to take a little test called the goodness test. Only 10 questions. Only 10 questions. They say, hey, 10 is fine. We can pass 10 questions. I said, well, there's a little catch to it, just a small catch. You have to get all 10 right. And you, in word, action, or deed, you can't fail in none of the areas. So we start out, and they say, okay, let's do it. We do it. First question, have you ever had any other gods before you? Then all of a sudden, all the people start looking around. Then some of the hands start dropping, but there's always a few that stay up. Hey, I'm good, right? So you go through that. I'll always get them on this one. It says, okay, what about honoring your parents? Have there ever been a time in your life when you ever disobeyed your parents? The hands start dropping. So if you know the 10 Commandments, you go through all of them, and it's like by the end of it, no hand is up. I said, well, how do we think? Are we lost? Are we not? Can we not go to heaven now? And then I said, well, praise God for that. I want to introduce you to this person named Jesus. It's because of him and the work that he did. He opened up the door. None of us could ever pass the goodness test. We can't. But because of the finished work of what Jesus did, he opened up the door for us to be able to have relationship with him. Relationship. Now you're talking about me knowing this person and this person knowing me, and it opens up a whole new. I always thought of God as being this, you know. Now you're talking. He cares about my personal life. He wants to be detailed with who I am as a person. I can pray to him. I can talk, you know. And so it just opened up a whole. And I'm excited. So I've been talking too much, but yeah, that's it.
You're good.
That's awesome.
So then conviction leads to repentance.
Conviction leads to repentance and a brand new life.
Yeah.
You know, you think you know what's important. You thought you understood what life was really all about, but it's not until you get to the step 5, which is saving faith, and then you're really introduced to why God created you. And that journey is from now until you go to heaven, and I love it. Right. Love it.
So to fill in a gap or two here, because you kind of went to how you work with the kids and stuff, but let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you and Juanita come to the Lord.
Yeah.
Bert Hullen and Joy play a key role in your life. There's men like Dean Frazier. You're starting to come out a little bit to Trinity. You meet Dad, so on and so forth. You meet Ty, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So then what did you do? How did you get involved with ministry with Burton, right?
Yeah. You know, the pain of not having a father in my life, God, I didn't realize it at the time, but I didn't know that God was going to use me. That was going to be my life calling. You know, I didn't know that at the time that because of that pain, that God was going to use me to work with young men through gangs and prison, you know, going to see guys in prison, fatherlessness. I didn't know that would be my life. And so that ended up being the direction that God sent us in terms of ministry, which we were doing. We would go and pick up kids. I mean, we would do it for years until the Hope Center opened up. You know, the Hope Center story where, you know, Ty Shinzo started the Hope Center, and he said that, hey, he wanted a place where the neighborhood kids can come experience the love of the Lord. And so when the Hope Center doors open, the short version, when the Hope Center doors open, the kids never stopped coming. And one by one, you can just see, I saw myself so much in a lot of those kids, the fatherlessness, the, you know, not knowing Jesus. And it's like, what I'm so proud of today, the Hope Center has been open for 26 years now. We've gone through our ups and downs, but the kids that are probably their early 30s now, they all can tell you, hey, you're going to learn about this 5-step journey to Jesus, and it makes me feel so good that they can turn around and teach it. Even though some of them may not be fully living it, they can tell you about how to get up the steps or how God has used them. So it's been put in them over the years. It's been a ministry tool for us that has really helped introduce our kids to Jesus. I think parents know about Step Up to Life through the kids of the Hope Center going home telling them that, hey, I got this booklet, and it's more than just a booklet, but it's a lifestyle of showing them exactly where they are, and I love it. When I go in rooms and I'm watching them teach it, it floors me. It really floors me. And so my son, who is an advocate, a deep advocate for Step Up to Life, he's taking it into the high schools now. To where, matter of fact, he just sent me a picture the other day. Now they don't let you teach God in high schools. They frown on that. Well, God has opened up a door. He gets every Wednesday. He gets to teach it's after school. The kids can volunteer to come. Every Wednesday, I think it's from 4 to 5. It started off with 1 or 2 people teaching Step Up to Life. Now, he just sent me a picture the other day. There was up to 15 high school students sitting in class learning about Step Up to Life voluntarily. They get to come in there, and he is so blown away by that. And I was like, man, hey, the Lord is opening up doors. And but the principal of the school, which I love, I don't think she's a believer, but she said, okay, I know I've seen and recognized the impact of what my son was doing with Step Up to Life has on the kids. And so she just opened up the red carpet and said, hey, you got the keys to the school. And I told him, hey, man, go for it. As God has given you opportunity, go for it. And that group is growing in ways where it's been unbelievable for me to watch and see.
So, your son Tank is such a great guy, and he's working with Youth for Christ.
Youth for Christ.
And his focus is Northwest.
Yeah, Northwest. Yep, Northwest High School. Right. Northwest. They allowed him to go into Northwest High School. I get to go into the youth prison and teach Step Up to Life in the youth prison, and I love that. It's sad to be able to have to go into the prison, but I feel like this. I feel like, Lord, okay, you've given us you opened up the door for us to be able to go, and we might as well make the most of it. And so, yeah. Right. So he's in the school. My part, I get to, of course, the Hope Center, and then getting allowed to go into the youth prison is where I spend most of my time.
Wow. So there's an important little thing we just need to touch on for a second. Ed and I both have a very close friend named Ty Schenzel, who is now in heaven. Yeah. Tell us about the impact of Ty on your life, him inviting you into the Hope Center, just a little bit about that.
Yeah, Ty, I so interesting, man. Ty.
Let me just say this. For those of you that don't know, Ty is a white kid from Fremont, Nebraska, where he would jokingly, joke with a laugh, but it was real. Did he say there was not one black kid in his entire high school?
Not one.
Not one in Fremont.
Not one.
Right.
Not one.
So the Lord lays on his heart this ministry to North Omaha, which is like, you may as well go to China if you're from Fremont.
Yeah.
And so, but early on in that process, you got engaged with him in this great endeavor, which is now the Hope Center for Kids.
Yeah. Going to Bert Holland inviting us to Trinity, and I thought that was it. Until then I met Ty Schenzel and all the things that God was doing with his heart for North Omaha at the time. And I can say this respectfully, he probably was the whitest of the white in terms of just how he grew up, where he came from, and he would tell you all of that. Yes. He later told me during our time together, he said he appreciated our relationship because he said he felt like that I opened up doors for him that he probably wouldn't have never gotten in.
Yes.
And I told him the same thing he did. I did the same thing for me. He opened up doors that I feel like I probably wouldn't have never gotten in.
Yes.
But one thing I love and I miss to this day most about him is that we grew in ministry together. And all of my ignorance about certain things that he knew, he helped me with those things. And he said I did those same things for him. But one thing I admire most about him, and I think the reason why I'm still here today, is because he had a heart for people that I had never seen in anybody. Coming from where he came from, he had a love and a heart. He had the Father's heart for his daughters would call him, and he would answer the phone and say, "Hello, beautiful." And I was like, that he was what I always wanted in a dad for myself, and just the way he loved on his wife and loved on his kids, it spoke volume. And the kids at the Hope Center, I was a bad cop. He was a good cop. Whenever they would get in trouble, I would be the one that had to do the discipline. And he loved the role. They would always run to him, and because he was so perfect for that, the way he loved on them and that type of thing. And I miss him. I really do. I miss, but I feel like he used to tell us this about the Hope Center. There was a phrase at the Hope Center that when we started, the phrase was, "To the one that lives in hopelessness, consequences mean nothing." And he said, "To the one that lives in hopelessness, consequences mean nothing." And so he was saying, and he identified, got me all jacked up here.
You're good.
He talked about the hopelessness that he saw in the hearts of our kids. And he said, okay, if hopelessness is a problem, then the answer is hope. And the biggest thing of all that I got out of that was bringing and introducing the hope of Jesus to the lives of our kids. And I'm forever grateful that I had the opportunity to be able to minister alongside with him, together. He said, he would say to us, he said, the day is going to come when we'll have to fight for the DNA of hope. And I used to look at him like, I don't know, why would you say that? Everybody here, we are the Hope Center and everything that represents. Fast forward, I never would have thought that I would be living in that time to where we have to fight for the DNA of keeping who we are, what we are, going in that type of thing. But Step Up to Life has been a huge part of that. It's like they went hand in hand along with Fresh Start. It's almost like they went hand in hand. There were the tools that God used to bring the kids to a true relationship with Him. And so I'm forever. I could have went. I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan. I could have went and played for the Dallas Cowboys and won 5 Super Bowls, or the Los Angeles Lakers and won our 18th championship, which we're not going to get this year. But I would have never been as satisfied with my life as I am now with God introducing me to the people that He's introduced me to. Or I feel like I have a purpose in my life that I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't trade for the world. And
Ty came to faith through Step Up to Life as well. If you remember his story.
Yes, yeah.
He called up Steve Peterson one night, and Steve said, "Come on over," and they got out Step Up to Life, and Ty saw where he was and gave his life to the Lord with that tool as an aid in his journey.
Yeah, when I hear stories of your father being raised on the East Coast, he never would have thought that all those years later he would be impacting a group of people. And even long after he's gone to heaven, his life still lives because there are kids in North Omaha that are being introduced to Jesus because a man named Elmer Murdoch said yes to the Lord, and that said yes to the Lord, and the impact still goes on. And it's like, oh man, what is wrong with me? God.
All of that, if you're not aware, it all came from a sermon that he preached 67 years ago in a small church back in New England. And he had no idea when he preached that message that about 15 years later it would turn into a booklet in the early 70s and then sweep the world, literally. I mean, from North Omaha kids to just today I picked up 2 boxes of the children's edition, and they're going to get shipped to Haiti.
Wow.
Which Haiti's a mess right now in every way. But the pastors there are like, we want these resources. So yeah, he had no idea the impact that all of that would have. And it's funny because Ty and I worked together for many years, and it was funny is this burden for North Omaha. I watched him become pregnant with a vision. Because I was the youth pastor at Trinity, and then we worked together in youth ministry, and then I became the missions pastor, and he took over. Yeah. So here he is, he's the youth pastor of a West Omaha, basically white group of kids. And then I just watched this burden and this pregnancy in him for North Omaha grow in the Black community there. And then to watch it be fulfilled, it starts, you're involved, you engage with him, and I'm listening to him tell me about your relationship.
Wow.
He goes, I love Ed because I can ask him as a white kid from Fremont, I can ask him any question about being Black, the Black community, and he's not offended, and he answers me, and he can do the same with me.
Yeah.
I thought, there's brothers. Yeah. There's a Black man and a white man who are absolutely brothers in Christ.
Yeah.
That just brings my heart such joy.
I love it.
So cool.
Well, you too. I mean, I look at you and I think about, who you are and what you represent and what God has done in your heart. They talk about, legacy leaders, and those type of things. You asked me, somebody asked me a while ago, hey, what are we missing today? we're missing the legacy leaders. The legacy leaders are the ones that, oh man, what is going on with me today?
You're good, man.
The legacy leaders are the ones that they say yes to the Lord. They do what God tells them to do, and the work that God put in their heart lives long after they're gone. And it's like, okay, Edward, they said, what do you want to be? I want to be one of those guys that, I want to be Elmer Murdoch, to where long after I'm gone, whatever God's put in me is still touching and changing the hearts for the Lord. And to me, that's one of my greatest, missions in life.
Hey, let me tell you, Ed, you are that. You are that, and you are becoming that more and more. I appreciate you so much. And very appropriately, last year at the Hope Center for Kids banquet, Ed was given a wonderful award. And I forgive me, I can't remember the name of the award. I just remember sitting there. Was it for 30 years of service?
Yeah.
35? 30?
30 years of
30 years of service. And they honored Ed. And Scripture says that we're to give honor to whom honor is due. And I sat there, Ed, and my heart was so happy for you. I thought, this is right. This is good. This man needs to be honored for the way he has served the Lord so faithfully there at the Hope Center, and even before that with Dayspring, for decades now. And so, brother, you deserve that, and you are a legacy leader. And when you and I are both gone and we're in heaven rejoicing, by God's grace, hopefully the fingerprints that we left here will be still impacting lives. So you're such a blessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know where you go with that, but over to you, man.
Give us a little window into a day in your life. You're talking about the Hope Center. Tell us a little bit about what is that like. Obviously, Ty Schinzel and you have been building that for years, but give us a window into how is God using the Hope Center right now. What is your ongoing role there? Give us a window into that.
I don't want to sound down, but the challenge that we're facing today, if you guys are familiar with the ongoing violence in North Omaha, and we work real closely with Omaha Police Department and Omaha 360. When I say we, the Hope Center, is that the kids that are committing these crimes are getting younger and younger. We just had a meeting last week about the Jean Leahy Mall, all the trouble that the kids are causing down at the mall. And the surprising thing was that these kids are 8 to 12-year-olds. And I was like, 8 to 12-year-olds? I said, okay. And just when the fathers are not there, the whole dynamics that go along with that. But the unfortunate part and the sad part about what we do is that these 13, 14, 15-year-olds, these are the ones that are committing most of the crimes and those type of things. And so for us, places like the Hope Center now, it's like I would love to get them to the table to where we can hear the Step Up to Life and play basketball and eat a little bit and enjoy life. But now, we're spending more times at the youth prison. We're spending more time at the violent prayer walks and those type of things. And it's a different dynamic in ministry now than it was when we first started. The kids, the father's issues has always been there, but now you're dealing with a lot of single moms who these young men, God bless their hearts, these young men, they're out here, they're doing things that make our community is not safe. In a lot of areas, and so I think about the violent crimes and the guns that these young people have. It's hard. It's taxing on all of us that work in that line of field, because I thought about it. There was a murder a couple of weeks ago, and so when you work like a place like the Hope Center for as long as we have, most of the time now the victim and the perpetrator, the families of both sides. Wow. And so I was telling the group, I said, as a pastor, I said most of the funerals that I've done have been for 20 and under. All 30 years of ministry, 90% of my funerals have been for younger people. And it's like, and so over time, it's like, I don't see how people you can't do this without God's grace being on you. So the challenges that we face for the day to day is just getting the guys to see themselves past, hey, 20, we had the kids one year. I remember we had the kids one year make a vision board. And these two particular kids, they came in and they had a vision. Their vision board was of funerals and guns and didn't see themselves living past 20. And I was just telling this story. The other day. Didn't see themselves living past 20. So we presented Step Up to Life to them, right? And both boys, it was in our summer job program, both boys were heavily involved in gang activity. Well, the short version of it is the one, he accepted the Lord, right? He was actually shot 5 times. He accepted the Lord. The other one, he said, this is exactly what he told us. He said, I was sent here to do the devil's work. He ended up killing himself. They did this Russian roulette game that at 15 years old. I was thinking, okay, when I was 15 years old, I wasn't making life and death decisions. So I said all that to say that ministry now, it's like without the Lord, people won't last long, because the trauma and the pain it's just too much. It's too much to watch. I want to see, back to what we were saying in the beginning, when I was growing up in North Omaha, I remember kids playing at the park. I remember, kids running, playing football and all those type of things. Those same neighborhoods, you don't see kids playing in those neighborhoods now because of when the area is infested by violence, fear keeps you in the house, and and all those type of things, and so yeah, it's just that if the point of prayer for us is that God would continue to give us grace to get people to start caring again. If you can the hope is for, hey, if I can get you to see your life beyond just the violence that you see now, hopefully it'll help you make better decisions for the future and that kind of thing. So.
Wow. Yeah.
So I know I don't want to running low on time, but you're also a pastor. You pastor a church.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've been pastoring.
How long have you been doing that?
Yeah, it's going on 30 years with Dayspring Ministries. And the Dayspring Ministries church actually came out of all places, the Dayspring Bible study class that I went to.
Wow.
Yeah. So as soon as you walk in our church, you're going to see the Step Up to Life poster. Anybody that walks through the church, and a whole rack of Step Up to Life things there. And I love the church. I feel like if I wasn't working at the Hope Center, I would be doing that full time. And I love ministering God's word to people, and I love the whole community of just interacting with different pastors and just the fellowship of believers. I love that part. I'm an old youth leader now, believe it or not. But I feel like God probably will always have me in some kind of way working with kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That is so great.
Yeah.
So what is God, as we kind of land the plane here, what has God kind of placed on your heart in terms of, you're kind of at a unique stage in life where you're not an old man yet, but you're not a young guy.
Yeah.
What is on your heart? What is on your mind? What's God stirring in you in the next chapter?
Nick, I know exactly what that is. Wow. And it goes back to Elmer Murdoch. I feel like, hey, I want to tell as many of the young guys that'll listen, hey, Jesus is the only star of this show, right? Make him first your priority and start building a legacy of faith that will carry on long after you're gone. I find myself talking to guys now, like I'm the old guy in the room now, and it's like, fellas, you got to make sure you be good examples, and we go down the list. Hey, greedy for money. Hey, stay away from that. Pride, how damaging pride will do. Inappropriate relationships. You're setting the stage for the younger generation to look and to see, hey, they need people to follow. They need godly men and women to say, okay, hey, I'm not going to do it exactly how you did it, but show me how to live this overcoming victorious life through Jesus Christ. And I feel like for me, it's like Ty used to say this about me. He said when you don't speak, hope loses. And it took me years after he was gone for it to finally click in my head. I don't sit on the sidelines anymore and be quiet. If I see something I feel like that needs to be addressed, we go for it now. So,
wow, to have that kind of clarity in terms of like, well, here's the deal. In a year and a half or whatever, you're going to be 60. So you're a track guy. Okay, so you're going to understand this really well. The mile. I know you were a sprinter, so the mile, you probably never ran the mile.
For punishment, they made me run the mile.
For punishment. Okay, and the mile was way too short for me. So, but in the mile, it's 4 laps.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you take that and overlay it on life, say the average age is 80. Yeah. So guess what? Every 20 years is a lap. So you, my friend, are finishing your 3rd lap.
Wow.
And you shortly will start the bell lap,
Yeah.
right? You come around, they ring the bell, letting everybody know this is it.
Yeah.
And which is the most exciting lap in the mile?
Oh,
It's the last one.
The last one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Because
Wow.
that's when everything happens.
Yeah.
Everything's set up before that for that last lap.
That's true.
So just to encourage you, I love hearing that you have clarity for this, what would be starting the last. I'm not saying you're that old, but I'm just saying that, 60 to 80, that's your last lap.
Last lap.
And it's also the most effective. Somebody told me the other day, the 60s is the most effective decade in a person's life in ministry. And the second one, most effective, is the 70s.
Wow.
And then it drops down to, 40s, 50s or whatever.
Wow.
So you're heading into the best 20 years of your whole life.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. The bell's going to ring and off you go.
I love it.
Ed, do you have any final thoughts to share about Step Up to Life, or how do we get connected with the Hope Center?
Yeah.
People want to know more information about this.
Yeah, the Hope Center is 341-HOPE. You can call the Hope Center if you're interested in volunteering or being a part of it, or if you just got his. Ty used to always talk about he didn't want to write a book because he said he didn't want people to think that he was full of himself. And I told him, I said, you have to write the book because what it'll do, it'll encourage other young ministers to go for it like you did. Well, fast forward, I hear so many stories about his book and people getting saved through the book. People are going for it in ministry through the book. So I said, hey, you got to do that. So that book, 1,000 Screaming Mules, is a must read for any young minister that's thinking about following the Lord and doing what God has placed in their hearts, and that kind of thing.
It's an unusual title.
Yeah, unusual title.
1,000 Screaming Mules. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, on Amazon.
Ty Schenzel.
Yeah.
Pick it up. It's a great read.
Great read.
Great
Great
read.
read.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Very good.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us. I'm
Thank
sure
you, guys.
this
Thanks,
won't be
Ed.
the last time we connect and talk with you.
I feel like I'm at home and we're in a room
Good.
talking to my
That's what we
friends.
want.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's the whole vibe we want to have. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys.
If you're more interested in Step Up to Life, of course, you can get on our website, stepuptolife.com. Of course, you're already listening to the podcast. Share it with a friend. If you have someone who doesn't know where they're at on their spiritual journey, share this conversation with them. If you want resources, let us know. We would love to connect you.
And on that note of resources, we still have some posters. So if you want a poster, you'll have to frame it yourself. We don't frame it.
You don't frame it.
But if you want to buy a poster, I don't know, they're $10 or something. Maybe.
Yeah, you can. They're on the website.
They're on the website. So you can order a poster, put it on your wall, and you have no idea. One poster, one life, well, two lives, counting Juanita, and the thousands and thousands of people that have been impacted because of your life coming from one poster. Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Gracious questions with a strategic goal to get people where God's calling them to.
That's good.
And so, yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
That's all for this edition of the Step Up to Life podcast. Thank you for spending this time with us, and we hope you were encouraged and inspired to stick to the gospel so the gospel sticks. If you would like to support this podcast or the global ministry of Step Up to Life with a one-time or monthly financial donation, you can easily give online at stepuptolife.com. I'm your host, Nick Bank, and look forward to seeing you next time.